too.
Yeah, this is Dr. Georgie, everyone. So very excited to have you here. Right, so that threw me, not working, but we're back on track now. So I'll do a little introduction and then we'll get stuck in.
Okay.
Brilliant. So for those of you just joining or don't know me, and this is the first time you've seen one of our Instagram lives, my name is Wiz. I'm the co-founder of Valerie. We're a perimenopause brand, and this is the fourth in our series of Instagram lives talking about the peri paradox. And if you've been watching us already, fantastic, and if you're new to us, hello. And we've been exploring the crazy different paradoxes that you get during perimenopause. In our first Instagram live, we were talking about what the F is perimenopause, why are there so many symptoms, and what the hell can we do about them, and how does it seem like there can be really differing symptoms between friends, but also one minute you feel one way and the other minute you feel the exact opposite. We talked about that with Bex, our perimenopause expert. So do go back and watch these as well if you're interested to learn more. Our second was with Dee Dee, and we discussed weight gain, bloating, how one minute you can feel sexy as hell and the next minute you'll feel bloated like a balloon. And then our third one was a bit of a hot and steamy one with Claire Doré, who's a relationship expert. And we talked about sex and how your libido can be amazing one minute and then the next minute you'll just like feel like complete nun mode. So today we're talking about the rage. And again, really mood is a big theme that comes up a lot in perimenopause. And so we're going to talk about how one minute with these hormonal ups and downs that you can get, you can feel this rage, this feistiness, the ugly cries, feel like you're in puberty all over again. And then for others that perhaps you're all of a sudden feeling amazing and want to go out partying with your friends. So I'm really excited today to have Dr. Georgie Leslie with me. She is a practitioner at the London Hormone Clinic, and she specialises in supporting women of all ages with their hormone health. And obviously perimenopause is such a long stage that we're discovering now, and it can be for some women. I'm really excited to have her wealth of expertise to talk about this topic today. So, Georgie, I'd love you to do a little introduction about who you are and your passions.
Oh, no. Well, thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I'm Dr. Georgie. I'm a hormone specialist at the London Hormone Clinic, and my background is actually working as a gynecology doctor in the NHS for God, almost 14 years. And I often felt frustrated about my own lack of knowledge about hormones, even working as a gynecologist, and why we didn't talk more about hormones when it came in relation to a lot of gynecological conditions, and also how it felt there was a lot of limitations in treatment for women. So through that frustration, I decided to deep dive learning about hormones and how hormones affect all of women's health, how it affects a number of conditions, things like PMS, PMDD, PCOS, endometriosis, hormonal migraines, perimenopause and menopause. And I absolutely love the work that I do. I love educating women, empowering women to take back control of their own health. And my greatest reward in treating women is seeing the significant change that balancing hormones can make to women's lives and to their health.
Fantastic. Yeah, it must be so rewarding to see the change and people getting their mojo back.
Yes. Yeah.
It's exciting. Brilliant. So I suppose that's a great segue to, I suppose, my first question I had as well is, I suppose women have had to literally work with physically, mentally and emotionally navigate their hormones since the onset of periods and puberty. And why does it all seem to go a bit mad and ramp up again in the 40s and beyond? What's going on?
Yeah. Kind of understand what's happening in perimenopause, I think it's good to just remind ourselves what's happening with our menstrual cycle in our reproductive years. So I'll talk about what a normal menstrual cycle happens with our hormones. Now, there's a lot of variation for women in what is meant to be normal. And of course, a lot of women suffer with hormone imbalances throughout their life. But let's recap on that so we can then see what's changing. So a lot of this you'll know already, but so the beginning of your cycle, when you have your period, your estrogen and your progesterone levels are low. Then we start to make follicles. These produce estrogen levels rise. And then around ovulation, around mid-cycle, we have a surge in testosterone. Then our estrogen levels remain high. And from that ovulation, we must start making the hormone progesterone. Progesterone levels rise in our luteal phase. And then in the days preceding our period, 3, 4, 5 days, sometimes a week or sometimes more for some women, progesterone levels drop. And it's this drop in the hormone progesterone that causes PMS symptoms, okay? The classic breast tenderness, cravings, emotional, bloating, immunity dip. I mean, there's a million premenstrual symptoms that can occur. This drop in progesterone also destabilizes the lining of the womb, and that's when we have our period. So that's a quick recap on what happens in our menstrual cycle. So what happens in our 40s? So while you might still be having periods and you might still be ovulating, the first hormone that declines is you tend to make less of the hormone progesterone. Okay. And progesterone is an amazing hormone. It's a mood stabilizer. It's a diuretic. It gets rid of excess fluid. Progesterone is a great treatment for acne, for migraines. Progesterone is anti-inflammatory. And so progesterone starts to decline in our 40s. And this is what prompts some of these first hormonal changes, these first hormonal symptoms. Progesterone also helps with things like hot flushes and the quality of our sleep. So important, quality of sleep. Then what happens is we start to lose estrogen. And for some women, estrogen just steadily declines until we hit menopause, and then we're not making any. And for other women, it is hormonal chaos. They make less of the hormone estrogen, and their brain, the pituitary part of our brain, tries to fire up our ovaries, okay? And then we have a huge surge in the hormone estrogen. And it's up and down, month to month. And this is really, really difficult for many women, and why for some women, starting on standard HRT, for example, works for them, and for other women, it doesn't, because they don't need more estrogen. They're producing surges of it. It makes them feel awful. So that's what's happening. It's a little bit the wild west of estrogen. What also happens in our 40s is, if that wasn't enough, we start making less of the hormone testosterone. Testosterone is just as important for women as it is for men. Testosterone is about confidence and motivation. Testosterone is good for cognition, for metabolism. It prevents us depositing fat and cellulite. It's great for our skin. And of course, testosterone is really important for libido and sex drive. Okay, so all of this is going on until we finally hit menopause, which is when we stop having periods for more than a year and we're not making any estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone.
Got it. That's really, thank you. I mean, I think just need to hear it more and more and more. And it's honestly like, even the period bit, I mean, it wasn't until I read a book in my late 30s and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, right. And there's 4 phases. And this is, yeah, I mean, it's mind blowing how little we know or were taught or it's talked about. And yeah, so yeah, even you say lots of you might know this, I think lots of people still don't know it, and you probably deal with it day in, day out, and lots of people are like, oh,
they start having problems, and then the education begins, and it's, you know, it is really surprising, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose there's a lot of us that think we're kind of a tough cookie and kind of just could get on with things. And then all of a sudden we're crying at the John Lewis Christmas advert, which, sorry, I know Christmas will be coming soon. But can you explain this sudden 360-degree turnaround of how we're feeling one thing 1 minute and one thing the next?
Absolutely. Well, it's because of these big fluctuations that are occurring. And a big one is the lack of progesterone, because progesterone is a natural mood stabilizer. So we just feel super sensitive to anything. And for some women, it's going to be different. So some women will be super sensitive and like crying of a hat, you know, feeling overwhelmed, like a electricity bill comes in. Now, I know electricity bills are scary at the moment, but, you know, completely overwhelming. And for other women, it's, you know, it's the rage that we talked about earlier that can come up, and for other women, it's low mood and anxiety. But it's the majority of it is low progesterone that's occurring. That's our hormone, and sometimes combined with high levels of estrogen as well.
Yeah. Okay, that totally makes sense. And again, I suppose that's impact. We're seeing that, I'm hearing a lot that it's impacting people with social situations. Lots of people are feeling socially inadequate or awkwardness. They plan out these nights with their friends. They used to have an amazing time, and then they feel they can't cope or anxious to go out and cancel them lastminute.com. Are there any tips you've got for these kind of extreme feelings that people have, and how, I suppose, best to cope and manage or approach them?
Absolutely. I mean, so again, you know, those kind of confidence symptoms that we're lacking, that's often down to things like less estrogen and less testosterone. Think back to your menstrual cycle, when, you know, the beginning of your cycle, you start more confident, and like you're going out and like you want to meet people, and then you get some testosterone, and then you really want to meet people. So when you're lacking those hormones in perimenopause, you're just like, nah, I'm not interested. And it is really tricky. A common symptom of perimenopause is poor quality of sleep. And we all know if you repeatedly, night after night, you're not getting good quality of sleep, your ability to and want to do anything is diminished. So as well as trying to balance out your hormones, really focus on good sleep health, your routine before you get to bed, and try other means to get a better quality of sleep as well as balancing your hormones that will have a better impact. And I think sometimes you just got to be honest with people. If you're really not feeling the vibe and you really don't want to go, I think you just got to speak up. If they're a real friend, they'll understand. And I don't know about you, but the number of times I've had a plan and then someone's cancelled and you're like, I was really looking forward to see them, but actually I'm really glad to have a night in.
Yeah.
People will understand. And I think it's about, where we can, trying to manage our social schedule. Okay, it's difficult if it might be the one and only night off you've got to see friends, or that you're not looking after kids or something like that. But trying to reduce your schedule where you can, so you've got more ability to cope and you've got more energy at times. But it's tricky.
Yeah, I think that's actually been a big theme that's been coming through on these lives as well, is really that around boundaries and how you look after yourself. I think especially as women, we're caregivers naturally, and looking after lots of other people, whether that's children or aging parents or teams at work, and putting other people's needs before their own. And I think it can be a real opportunity, actually. Obviously, it can be a challenging phase, but I think these challenges present opportunities to then assert boundaries and put things in place that actually looks after you rather than looking after everyone else all the time. Because if you're not looking after yourself, you can't look after other people.
Absolutely. I see so many women in clinic who, they say, well, I've been having all these symptoms for years and years, and I don't know why I haven't done anything about it. It's like, well, because you've been looking after everybody else.
Yeah.
A duck paddling deep under the water, and now it's like to actually look after you. But it's recognizing something is going on here. I'm not going mad. Okay. I'm not just getting old. There's something going on here. It's about my hormones, and recognizing that and acknowledging that about it.
Definitely. And the number one question that kind of we get asked, we have a community WhatsApp group for our daily essential users, and the number one question is how to cope with anxiety. And kind of it'd be great for you to just explain a little bit about that connection to perimenopause, and if you've got any kind of coping techniques that you advise.
Yeah. So again, anxiety is often down to progesterone as well, and balancing your hormones is a huge part. Looking after your overall health and nutrition, your diet, making sure you're getting good essential vitamins and minerals, regular exercise, all these things are gonna help. And again, talking to people about it, whether that's a friend going through something similar, or support groups exactly like you're offering, and talking to a healthcare professional about it. It might get to the point where you actually need some proper talking therapy, counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy. There are lots of things out there, and considering maybe HRT, I might be ready for HRT. That is an option in perimenopause, so talk to a specialist as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's great. And I suppose following on again from our first Instagram live we did with Bex, we talked about women that because she's also she's a perimenopause expert, but she's also a lead nurse and specialises in female health and menopause, which is amazing. And we talked a lot about women attending her clinic and wanting help because they no longer feel themselves, and like how do they manage their closest relationships in relation to their moods and emotional peaks and troughs. And I kind of just wondered kind of what were your thoughts and your experiences and those most common things that you're seeing in your clinic that could help somebody listening today.
Yeah. I mean, a common complaint that women come with, more and more, are women saying, I just experienced terrible rage, and I have absolutely zero tolerance for my husband or my partner, and I'm shouting at my children, and then I feel super upset about it. Okay, women experience this. And again, it's that low progesterone, and they're having surges of estrogen. The right level of estrogen makes us feel amazing. It's a happy hormone. Too much estrogen causes
Yeah.
rage. Okay,
Yeah.
where it's coming from. Um, so, but again, I think you just got to talk to your family. Don't think that they're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they'd much rather have an explanation that, you know, you're not really angry at them for not putting the dishes away, but
Mm.
going on, okay, and it's a normal part of our life cycle. But if they have an understanding, then they're going to have a little bit more kind of leeway. You know, they're going to say, okay, mum, I know you're upset, you know, can I make you a cup of tea or something? They'll be able to help. And it's amazing actually when um, partners or men learn about what's happening, is they become huge allies of the
Mm.
perimenopause. Some men get really into it. They start reading about it, making suggestions, you know, telling their mates about my wife's going through perimenopause. Men can be huge allies, and they want to help. They want to make relationships better. So I think just being honest. Don't be afraid to talk about hormones. You know, there's the old kind of um, thing that people used to say, like if you were a bit upset, they'd be like, "Oh, she's on her period," and
Yeah.
it created this stigma
It did.
around, like, you know, don't be blaming it on my hormones when it may well have been a bit of your hormones as well, and that they were being an idiot. But you know, so I think it kind of created that stigma that, oh, we can't admit it's our hormones. Yes, admit that it's your hormones. Admit that there's a lot going on.
Mm.
Explain what's going on. It's all about education. Will really help.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely key, that communication, particularly with your loved ones. It was interesting, we were doing some interviews on the street for social media and asking people if they knew what perimenopause was. And it was interesting to see, talking to some women with their, one with a teenage boy and one with a teenage daughter, and them talking about the teenage daughter going, "Oh, I don't know what it is. What is it?" And they were like, "Oh God, you don't want to know. It's a bit like puberty." And then the son of another mother and son, she was saying, "Oh yeah, no, I know what it is, and we talk about it." And I thought that was fantastic. He was like, "Yeah, it's a bit like what me when I'm moody." And actually, everyone does get a bit of rage or upset, and I think it's normalizing emotions as well. I think particularly, I know myself, and British culture is, "Oh no, everything's fine, everything's fine," and I think it's probably different in different cultures as well,
Yeah.
I imagine.
Exactly. And I think, you know, like we said earlier, kind of it's not until these hormonal changes occur that you start learning about all of this and what's going on. When you
Mm.
educate your children so that they have the knowledge of in the future, so that they're not kind of confused and disorientated. And when you much rather have a son who's able to support their partner, you know, if it's, you know, a woman or whatever, that in the future that they can help support them most appropriately because they have an understanding of it. Much rather raise children with that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And be, yeah, open to talking about those feelings. So yeah, I think that rage management and communication is absolutely key, as well as working on all the physical aspects that you have going on. Um, so we had a little question here, which was quite an interesting one. Can your mind and what you think impact your levels of testosterone?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. You know, I think there's an incredible connection between the mind and all of our body, you know,
Mm.
and there's a lot of research that's done into how the mind can affect us. So, and we know, you know, things like meditation can calm us, reduce our cortisol levels, and can therefore impact a lot of other hormones as well, because hormones are incredibly complex communication system. You know, you produce one hormone and it will create a lot of different hormones, and then there's feedback signals and such. So you know, whilst I don't have any direct knowledge to say if you do X, Y, Z, you're going to think your testosterone levels higher, I have nothing to say the otherwise either, because we see a lot of incredible things that can be achieved in the body through the power of thought.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in that, and I mean, there's a whole new wave of the the ancient traditions, really, and now science backing them all up, and particularly around meditation. And I've read a couple of interesting books. Yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza is amazing, amazing person to look up as well about those that thought patterns and our thoughts are about the past, but how can we predict what and try and change our future through our thoughts, which is, yeah, a whole other topic to delve into somewhere else. Amazing. And I suppose another question, just a final one before we wrap up, is just around contraception and perimenopause. Obviously, you're dealing with hormones and kind of and female health throughout all the stages. I suppose, is there anything else that should be done differently through stages of perimenopause?
Yeah, so a few things that might change. So after the age of 40, you need to be more accurately assessed in terms of your health, whether you could still take the combined oral contraceptive. For most women, a progestogen, so let's remember that progestogen is a synthetic progesterone. So it has a similar chemical structure, it's not equal to our body's own progesterone. But progestogen only contraceptives, there's a lot more flexibility. If you have something such as a copper coil or a progestogen coil like a Mirena or Kylena, after the age of 45, you can pretty much leave that in until you're properly through the menopause. So those are the main things in consideration. Most contraceptives are still available to all women over 40. The combined pill is not advised over 50. But for that 40 to 50 period, for the combined pill, you need to have a more accurate health assessment. Other thing to bear in mind is that some contraceptives, for example, things like the Mirena or like the Implanon, can mask when the menopause occurs. Because if you're waiting, like, when are my periods going to stop? But these contraceptives can reduce your periods. You might not have any, you might just get spotting. It can be hard to tell exactly when the menopause occurs. So it's just to bear that in mind. And after the age of 50, if you've not had periods for a couple of years and you're not on one of these masking contraceptives, then you don't need contraception anymore if you've not. So.
Okay. Brilliant. Got it. Thank you.
Let's remember, we can still get STIs in our 40s. So.
Brilliant. Good check. Amazing. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Gosh, I don't think so. But I think the most important thing, I think we've touched on several times tonight, is just talk to people more and more. It is really hard. There is a lot of information and misinformation about perimenopause and menopause. I think the most amazing thing that's happened in the last few years as we became much more health conscious during the pandemic is that so much more publicity about women's health, about these hormonal changes, and that is amazing. So we're seeing all this publicity and all this information, but it can be confusing to make head nor tail, and there's a lot of different information out there which can be really tricky. So it is always best to speak to a healthcare professional, whether that's your nurse, your GP, your gynecologist, or a hormone specialist such as myself, or use reputable sources on the internet. Chat rooms, sometimes as brilliant as they are to talk to people and share about your experiences, just be careful what medical information you take away from chat rooms, but they're great as a support network, great to share what's going on. So yeah, communication, keep talking to people, your friends.
Definitely. And yeah, also, yeah, it's amazing having experts like you that's able to come on and share your amazing knowledge as well, because every woman is unique, and even talking to your friends about it or other people, your experience is always going to be different. I think that's the biggest thing to remember, that it's not generic one size fits all. We're complicated and complex and unique women, which is beautiful. So
and also I think the thing to remember as well is that if you're having symptoms and you feel like you're being dismissed by anyone, like a friend, a family member, or a healthcare professional, just keep talking about it, keep getting a second opinion. Please, if you're being dismissed about symptoms, that's not the way it should be. So just keep persevering.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really important point. So thank you for joining. And yeah, this is Dr. Georgie Leslie. She's you can find her at the London Hormone Clinic, and you'll see her at the Instagram tag there, obviously from this video, and you can go directly through from their Instagram profile to their website if you want to get in touch. So thank you very much for joining me. And if you're watching this on the replay, please do feel free to add any questions in the bottom. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I've really loved joining you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye.